I'm excited to dive into this topic today because I've witnessed many students get frustrated by the limitations of one program or another. So today I want to look at a few key differences between Photoshop and Illustrator so that you can make the right choice for your next design project. Hello and welcome to Delightful Learning. I am Stephanie O and I'm an artist, a designer, and a creative coach. And today I want to answer for you one of the most asked questions that I get. When should I use Illustrator versus Photoshop? First, we have to understand the differences in how Photoshop and Illustrator are thinking about digital images. In Photoshop, you're creating raster-based images, meaning that they are made up of pixels. In Illustrator, you're creating vector art, meaning that the graphics and digital elements are based on math. Don't let this scare you. Illustrator does all the math for you. Let's take a closer look at how Illustrator is generating and displaying images.
Rather than using pixels to display graphics, Illustrator uses anchor points to create paths. If we zoom in on this vector art, you'll see there are many anchor points that join together to create the shapes and lines. This means that there are no pixels here, and no risk of creating low-resolution graphics. This is very different from the way Photoshop uses pixels to display images. Photoshop remembers the color and placement of each and every square that makes up an image. This is so important because it means that if you try to scale a pixel-based image very large, you will start to see the pixels. Your image becomes very low resolution and low quality. Back in Illustrator, let's see where the math comes in. Illustrator plots anchor points according to XY coordinates. You can connect a series of anchor points together to create paths. Illustrator can create open paths, which means lines with specific endpoints, or closed paths, meaning complete shapes. Illustrator is just remembering where each anchor point is located and then calculating straight lines and curved lines based on your choices. When you use the shape tools or any other drawing tools in Illustrator, they are automatically creating anchor points and paths.
For more help on Illustrator, subscribe on YouTube for future videos. I'll cover topics like using the pen tool and direct selection tool to make finer adjustments to your art and design. The next question to ask yourself is, what kind of content are you working with? Sometimes it's tempting to work solely in Photoshop because you're using high-resolution images, but there are actually some very nice linking capabilities between Photoshop and Illustrator, so you might use a combination.
If you are working mainly with vector art but need to add some pixel-based images, you can make adjustments in Photoshop and then place the image in the Illustrator workspace. I click to place the file, and then I can make adjustments like resizing and cropping with a clipping mask. You can see here in the links panel that the file is linked, and I can go back to the original image in Photoshop. Now, if you make more adjustments in Photoshop, just save your file, and Illustrator will ask you if you'd like to update the modified link. Click Yes, and your image will display with the most recent saved edits. It's also possible to link vector art from Illustrator into Photoshop documents by using File, Place Linked. Move and scale your vector art. Then hit Enter on your keyboard, or click checkmark to apply the transformation. This option maintains the link to the original file, where you can make changes, save, and see your updates in Photoshop.
The next question to consider when selecting between Illustrator and Photoshop is, what is the final output of your project? Are you scaling graphics very large, or are you printing high resolution photos on something like a canvas? What is the end goal? Design with the end in mind. By selecting the right program up front, you're setting yourself up for a smoother creative process.
When choosing between Photoshop and Illustrator, are you using typography? If so, I highly recommend using Illustrator. Photoshop actually has to manipulate the font designs in order to display them in a pixel-based environment, and you might lose quality. In Illustrator, there is no loss of quality when we scale or manipulate typography. Most modern digital fonts are scalable like vector art, and there are no pixels to worry about. You can also make use of Illustrator's vector capabilities with typography by creating outlines. For more tips on working with typography in Illustrator, subscribe to my channel to get updates about future videos.
These are three main considerations to think about when you're choosing between Illustrator and Photoshop. The main thing is to always remember that Illustrator is vector-based and Photoshop is pixel-based. Thank you for joining me here again at Delightful Learning. I'm Stephanie O, and I would love to help you solve your creative challenges. Comment below, what is your biggest creative challenge? Click subscribe and notifications below for future updates, and I hope to see you again next time.